Today we geek out about Cthulhu, the horror in Dunwich. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Lee with Geek City USA here, and today we're going to talk about a game by Wyvern Gaming called Cthulhu, a horror in Dunwich. And this is a deck building game for 1 to 6 players that puts you as an investigator against an elder god and its minions, and which you have to fight to survive and maintain your sanity and health. And we're going to go over here, I'm going to give you a quick rundown on how the game's played, and we'll come back and I will give you our thoughts on the game. Okay, this is Cthulhu, the horror in Dunwich, and first things first, this is a prototype copy of the game, so all final components are subject to change, as well as the art is subject to change, so definitely check out the Kickstarter page for more information to see if there are any changes and what those may be. Now in this game, the players play as investigators, and I currently have it set up as for a 1-player game, but this game does play up to 6 players, and there are other investigators for you to choose. So as you see here, I've selected the cowboy, and each character has a backstory, a special ability, something that they do after death, as well as a health tracker and a sanity tracker. And each are different and unique for each investigator. So here you see there's the medic with her own backstory and special ability and after death. There's the hobo, a gambler, and there's a whole bunch of them here. And in fact, one of them here, blacksmith judge, reporter, the acrobat, which her special ability is really cool on this expansion. But the time traveler here, which you may recognize from another game, maybe from Sojourn. But anyway, what you're going to do is every player is going to either select one or randomly deal one out. And then you're also going to have your Miskatonic library here, which you'll have 5 cards laid out. You are going to shuffle up the Elder God deck and randomly flip one. And in this case, we have Xenon. And then it tells you what they do. So each one is going to do something when they activate. In this case, he's going to summon 2 minions. And then actually, the number of investigators minus 2 minions each activation. So in that case, what will happen is you'll always summon at least one. But then here is the Mythos location. Now this is something that's different to this expansion that wasn't in the Cthulhu deck building game. And it's a cool addition. Before, pretty much the same mechanics, a few additions to the base, to what the original game was. But now these Mythos locations, you shuffle the deck and you flip one, and they're typically, a lot of times are pretty bad, but in this case, when an investigator takes health or sanity damage, they gain that amount in Moxie. And there are a number of different ones that may flip in this. And then of course you have your Mythos deck, which are going to flip each turn, as well as you have a deck of unique minions that you will use as they're summoned either through the Mythos deck or through the Elder God. And then each player is going to start with the library hand, where you're going to have 7 of these sleuth cards, which they give you 1 Moxie, so they're not bad to start off with, but then you'll also have 3 stagger cards that, this one take 2 health and sanity damage. It's a pretty graphic card. This one here, take 1 health and 1 sanity damage. And then the last one is here, get a headache, 3 health and 3 sanity damage. That looks like a bad day right there. So, 3 health, you're gonna survive from that. But anyway, I think the art on this game is very evocative and very thematic. It helps to capture the really eerie and creepy vibe of the Cthulhu mythos. So now when you start your game, your Elder Gods, as well as your Mythos locations and the number of Mythos cards you draw every turn is going to vary based on the number of players you're playing with. Again, I have this set up for a 1-player game just to illustrate the gameplay. So in this case, I have 1 Elder God in 1 location. However, if you have more players, you're going to have more locations potentially, or more gods, and so forth. So we're going to start with the planning phase, and you're going to make sure that your deck is shuffled up, your library. These are your 10 starting cards, and you'll draw yourself 5. And then you can, if you're playing with other people, you can share this information with your partners that you're playing with, because this is a cooperative game where you're all working against the Elder Gods. So we'll look here, we start with the planning phase, and you have the preparation part of the planning phase, and that's where you're going to play the cards that you have in your hand. Now, one item to note too, pay attention to your special abilities. In this case, the cowboy has twice per round. The cowboy can play any card, as if it were a revolver, gain 4 moxie, instead of what the card actually played. So the revolver is a firearm. So in this case, see how I have this stagger card, which would usually do 2 health and 2 sanity damage to me? I'm going to play this as a revolver, which is going to give me 4 moxie. And then I have these 4 cards, which are sleuth, which I can play as a 4 moxie if I want to. Now I can use these, so if I use these in the research phase, that allows me to buy items from here. So I can, depending on how I want to do this, I can say I want this large wallet because it lets me draw an additional card, or a kick action lets me gain 2 moxie. This is a gear card, so gear is something that you hold on to, and that gives me spikes, give me an extra moxie. Here's an action, aim. This is really good. Gain 2 moxie if a firearm's been played by you this round, then gain 4 moxie instead. So what I can do is, let's say in my planning phase, I'm going to prepare by playing this. Now your moxie can be used either to attack, as using it as combat strength, or to purchase or research these items. So what I'll do in this case is I'm going to play these 2, and that's 2 moxie, and then I'm going to research this card. And again, gain 2 moxie, and if a firearm's been played by me this round, then gain 4 moxie instead. So I'm going to put this in my hand, and that's where this differs from a lot of other deck builders. This doesn't go right into your discard pile. You can use this. Now I can't use this as moxie to buy anything else, but I can hang on to it till later to effectively use it to attack my Elder Gods over here. Now any moxie that you have activated here, so let's say I threw down all 4 of my moxie here, but I didn't use these, I would lose them if I didn't end up buying anything. So you're only going to play the moxie cards that you want to use to do the research portion of the first phase. Now once you do that, you can do final preparation, and if you have gear in your hand, you can use that to, you can play that now. Like if I had this, I could play it to make sure I have it to maybe have, a lot of times it might be like a bulletproof vest or something, or some kind of equipment to be a defense against what you're going to draw. In this case, I'm not going to do any final preparation based on what is in my hand. However, what I will do is end that portion of my turn, which makes me have to fill up the library again. So you always make sure that at the end of final preparation that you refill the library so there are 5 cards in the library. And the reason this is a big deal is because you're going to do this one person at a time. So if there were 4 of us playing, you want to make sure that you have cards available to the next player. Also, some of these cards might impact the library, so it might say, destroy everything that's in the library. So you'd shuffle this all and discard it. So if you're saving up to buy like one of these cards, hey, this is worth 5, it does a bunch of cool stuff, I want it. Well, if you flip a Mythos card or something that says to clear everything in the library, you're going to lose that, and there goes that for you. But now once you're done with the planning phase, you're going to move on to the combat phase. Now the combat phase, you're going to execute things in order. So let me put my cards here. You're going to start with the Elder God, and you're going to do anything that it says on their card. So if you look here, this says Xenon summons, and this is an icon for investigators. So this is the number of investigators minus 2 Migos each activation. So in this case, I am the only investigator for this example because it's set up for a solo game. So I would use, the number of investigators minus 2 would be -1, but you always have at least 1. So in this case, I'm going to summon 1 Migo each activation. So I'll set that down there, and then I'll go through the minion deck here, and we're going to look for a Migo. And here's one here. Typically, it helps to keep these organized. So when you do cleanup at the end of a game, I would always recommend putting these back in alphabetical order and keeping them all organized, because it just makes it going through, because you see there's multiples of each, because as the game goes on, we're going to be drawing a lot of these guys. So I'm drawing my Migo, and I'll show this here, and it says the investigator with the highest sanity takes number of investigators minus 3 health damage. So we're going to go ahead and I'll just place this guy, I'll place him right here, just so that way we have him on the screen. Usually I'll have this spread out a little more, but I kind of condensed it down for this illustration. I should also note too, one thing I didn't show you here on this specific Elder God, it says the spell moxie is reduced by 2 while Xenon is an active Elder God. So that would mean We don't have any out, but, and I don't believe I drew on that one. No, I drew an action. But there are spells in here, and they might provide you a certain amount of moxie. As long as he's in play, if you play a spell that would grant you 4 moxie, it's only going to give you 2 because of what this Elder God does. So after we do the Elder God activation, we're going to activate the Mythos deck. So let's flip this here, and we'll see we have the Eater of Souls. Summon the number investigator plus 1 ghouls. If that is the active Elder God, summon the number of investigators plus 3. Well, thankfully they're not. So we are going to go ahead and summon the number of investigators plus 1. So we're going to bring up 2 ghouls. So that'll be our discard pile. So I'm going to look through here. I'll find a couple of ghouls. And bingo bango. And if you look here, a ghoul, the investigator who has their special ability and has the lowest health, loses that special ability in the combat phase. Well, that really sucks because I had plans for this. So, and I'll kind of illustrate that in a minute. Let me move that over here as a discard, just so it doesn't get confusing. So now once you activate the Mythos cards, then your minions activate. And they are going to activate from lowest to highest. So we'll start and we'll activate each of them. You'll look at them here, and like we just looked at, this one means that we can't use our special ability, which that really sucks, and I'll show you why. But so he'll activate, or these 2 ghouls, and then we'll activate the Migo. And now what this does, the investigator with the highest sanity takes the number of investigators minus 3 health damage. So, which would just be 1, because I am the number, maximum of 1. So I would lose 1 health damage. Now, if you look here at our Mythos location, it says whenever an investigator takes health or sanity damage, they gain that amount in moxie. So we're going to take 1 health damage and drop from 40 to 39, but we now have 1 moxie already. So that is going to end the minion portion of the combat phase. So now we're going to go ahead and do the investigator portion here, and this is where we would play these cards for their moxie and do damage. And we could pick to do damage to the Elder God or the minions. In some cases, you won't be able to damage the Elder God until you get certain minions out. But here's where the Ghoul's special ability hurts us. I was going to use my special power, which lets me play any card as if it were a revolver and gain 4 moxie. Well, that would have been awesome because I could have played this card as though it were 4 moxie, and instead of taking 2 health and 2 sanity damage. And instead, you got to play your cards, so I'm going to take 2 health and 2 sanity damage. So I'll play that, 1, 2, and 1, 2. However, remember, because of our location, whenever an investigator takes health or sanity damage, they gain that amount of moxie. So now I've gained 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1. So I have 5 moxie now to use as the hero. So we have 5 moxie. This gives us 2 more. So 6, 7, 8, 9 moxie. So let's figure out what we want to do with 9 moxie. Well, we can only do so much. So I could take 9 damage onto the Elder God, or I could start getting rid of these guys. Now 9 damage is a lot of damage to do. These guys aren't really, this just prevents us from using our special ability, but as long as this location's in play, the cards that hurt us still kind of help us. So I'm not really concerned about getting rid of these guys. I wouldn't mind getting rid of him because he gives us damage each turn, but you know what, in the grand scheme of things, you don't have to worry about that too much because it's only doing 1 health damage. And we're pretty good on health. So what I'll do is I'll put 9 damage towards the Elder God. Now the game comes with a bunch of these logbook cards. Now these are really good, and I should have shown these a minute ago. They show you what you do in each per each phase. But these are also used to track health or damage. So in this case, this Xenon here takes 30 health. I would probably start with this at the 30 level and just tink it down as I go. So I just did 9 damage to this guy, so he's down to 20, and I'll put this other little Cthulhu pointer on the 1. So he's down to 21 health. And I'll just set that and put that next to him here, why not? Actually, let me switch these 2 like so. Just so you can see. Now I should note too that I didn't actually have to play this card. I could have kept it in my hand, but you see that it was beneficial for me to play because of not my special ability, which I originally hoped to play it as, but because of the Mythos location. So keep that in mind, because when you get into the cleanup phase, which is what we're going to go through right now, you would discard anything that's left in your hand, and it would just go to your discard pile, as well as anything that you played. So we'll go ahead and we'll just discard that here. And then if we had any other items that we would discard or clear up, which we don't, We would do that at this time, but then we could also, during the cleanup phase, determine if there are any cards that we don't want that are in the library. Let's say, for example, let me see here. We don't really want this kick card. We don't want to spend 1 moxie to gain 2 moxie, so you can actually take that out. And then let's say for whatever reason we didn't want the large wallet because we're not going to be able to afford it, so we'll take that out. And then you would replace it with 2 other cards. And then that would be what you are ready for your next turn. And then going into your next turn, what you would do is you would deal yourself out 5 cards. You would go through the planning phase, figure out what you want to buy. Then again, you would do your final preparation if there are any cards that you have, which I don't, but any kind of gear cards or defense cards that you want to put up. You would then activate your Elder God, play a different Mythos card, and continue on. And you would do this until either you have defeated your Elder God or your Elder God has defeated you or driven you crazy. And that, in a nutshell, is how to play the horror in Dunwich. Now, I'll go ahead and I'll take you back up top and I'll give you our thoughts on this game. All right, guys, that was Cthulhu, the horror in Dunwich. So let me start by saying that was a prototype copy of the game. So just be sure to check out the Kickstarter page or the Board Game Geek page if you're watching this after the Kickstarter, just to see any changes that may have happened since that prototype. Now, I really like the art on this game. I felt like it did a great job at invoking a creepy and moody kind of feel. It was very dark and ominous and really put you in the theme of being an investigator facing the most creepy thing in the world or the most evil beings in the world. Now, this game is a deck builder, so there is the standard deck building mechanic where you're going to build your deck, you're going to draw cards, and hopefully be able to call the weaker cards and build up the stronger cards as the game goes on. However, there are a few unique mechanics to this deck builder. One being that you can buy cards or research cards and get them into your hand, and then you can actually use those in the combat phase. So you're not actually taking those and shuffling them in the hopes of getting them later. So that definitely helped to mitigate some of the additional difficulty that you were going to face with these Elder Gods, because you could buy a card that could strengthen you for that moment. So, preparing to defeat specific minions or to do specific damage to your Elder God. And I definitely like that change in the mechanic for this game. Now, I really like the Mythos locations in this as well. Now, these were not in the original Cthulhu the deck building game, but they are here in this expansion, and it adds a little bit extra stress or a little bit extra, variety to the game as you play, because you have these locations that could be different or could even change throughout the game. And I definitely thought that was a good touch to it. There is an immense replayability factor to this game because there are multiple investigators that you can play as. In addition, there are multiple Elder Gods you could choose from or that you'll choose randomly. There's a ton of Mythos cards. There's a huge stack of library cards, a number of different Mythos locations. So there's always going to be a different setup and a different experience each time you play. Some games you may start off in a good situation and have a better chance at defeating the Elder God. Other games are going to be stressful right out of the gate where you're going to struggle from turn 1. And I think that adds a nice bit of flavor to the game. Now, the audience of this game is obviously anybody who's into the Cthulhu mythos. The theme definitely drips off this game, so it is hugely, hugely immersive in that nature. In addition, if you're a fan of deck builders at all, this takes the deck building mechanic, and like I said, with those slight tweaks and modifications to the game mechanic, it really creates a unique and fun deck building experience. Again, it's a stressful deck building experience, but it's one that I've really enjoyed, and I think it is a good take on the deck building genre. So some of the art on this is kind of dark and creepy, so I would probably recommend that younger kids steer clear, but I think for ages 12 and up, I think that would be an appropriate age for this. Now, we really, really enjoyed this game. This is a game that scales fantastically for multiple players. So if you're playing it at 1 player all the way up to 6 players, the game adjusts with that, IC count -2 or what have you on the minion cards that say, hey, if you're playing with 5 investigators, you're going to take 5 investigators plus 2 damage. So you would do, 7 damage to somebody, which is great when you're playing with a lower player count when it's just yourself, because it scales well. You're not going to defeat a lower player count too quick, and if you play with a ton of people, you're not going to overpower the minions and the Elder God too quickly. Now, again, the theme on this game is super immersive. I absolutely love that fact, where you felt like you were in this really, really dim and painful situation of trying to defeat these elder gods. You were trying to maintain your sanity and trying to stay alive as you're going through this. And I love that fact. The game was not too easy. The game at a lot of times was pretty brutal. And I love that fact about this game because if you are an investigator and you are facing an elder god in real life, you're not going to breeze through it. And I feel like this game does a great job in communicating that vibe and that feeling. You feel like you're struggling. It's stressful. Every card draw matters. You might have everything lined up to be perfect and you'll draw a Mythos card that totally pulls the rug out from underneath you, and next thing you know, you're failing miserably. And I love that fact about this game. So if you're a fan of deck building games at all, even a little bit, I would highly recommend you look into this game because I think there's a lot there that you can sink your teeth into. And if you like the Cthulhu mythos and the Cthulhu theme, then I definitely think you should check this game out because it is such a deep and immersive game that makes you feel like you're in the Cthulhu universe. So based upon that, I would highly recommend this game. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. I'm Lee with Geek City USA. Comment down below, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Also check us out on social media. We'd love to interact with you there. Again, thanks for hanging out with us. My name's Lee, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.